My son texted, "Sorry, Dad, we're too busy for your birthday, so I changed the locks on their free housing." Sometimes, teaching your children about respect requires drastic measures, especially when they've forgotten the value of everything you've sacrificed for them. My 65th birthday was supposed to be a small celebration, nothing extravagant, just dinner with my son Michael, his wife Deborah, and their two children at my favorite local restaurant. After losing my wife of 38 years to cancer last year, family gatherings had become even more precious to me. I'd been looking forward to this evening for weeks, especially since I rarely asked anything of my son's family despite everything I'd done for them. I was already dressed in my best sweater, the one Martha had given me on our last anniversary, when my phone buzzed with a text from Michael. "Sorry, Dad, we're too busy for your birthday tonight. Deborah has a work thing and the kids have homework. Maybe next weekend?" I stared at the message, reading it several times as the words sank in. Too busy? For a simple tower dinner? On my birthday? After everything I'd sacrificed for them? Including the house they were currently living in rent-free? The house that was still, technically, in my name? As I slowly set my phone down on the kitchen counter, something inside me finally broke. This wasn't the first time they'd dismissed me, treated me like an inconvenience rather than family. But as I looked around my empty house, at the birthday card I'd received from my sister in Florida, but nothing from my son who lived 10 minutes away, I realized it would be the last. To understand why their casual dismissal hit me so hard, you need to know our history. I'd worked as a high school physics teacher for over 40 years, while my late wife Martha had been a nurse. We never had much money, but we saved every penny we could for Michael's future. When he got accepted to State University, we paid his entire tuition, $86,000 over 4 years, so he could graduate debt-free. We helped with his first car, a used Honda that cost us $4,500. When he met Deborah in his senior year, we welcomed her into our family with open arms. After their graduation, when they were struggling to find jobs that paid enough, they lived with us for 8 months. No rent, home-cooked meals every night, all utilities included. Martha and I delayed our retirement by 2 years to help them get on their feet. When they finally found stable jobs and wanted to move out, we helped with the security deposit, $2,300, and first month's rent, $1,800, on their apartment. 3 years later, when they were expecting their first child, they started talking about wanting to buy a house, but couldn't qualify for a mortgage with their credit scores and debt-to-income ratio. Martha and I had just inherited her parents' second house after they passed, a modest 3-bedroom in a good school district. It needed some work, but the mortgage was nearly paid off. We had planned to sell it to fund our retirement travels, but instead, we offered to let Michael and his family live there. "Just pay the property taxes and insurance," I told them. "Save up for a down payment on your own place." That was 7 years ago. In that time, I'd spent approximately $28,000 on property taxes and another $12,600 on homeowners insurance that they'd promised but failed to pay. I'd invested nearly $35,000 in necessary repairs, a new roof, updated plumbing, and a kitchen renovation after a small fire. Whenever they called with a problem, I came running, often paying for repairs out of my own pocket when they claimed they couldn't afford their share. All this while they took 2 European vacations, bought new cars every few years, and Deborah accumulated a designer handbag collection that could rival a small boutique. I never said a word about their spending habits. After all, they were adults, and I wanted them to enjoy their lives. And I always assumed they appreciated what Martha and I had done for them. Martha had been the one to insist we keep the house in our names just in case, though we'd always intended to transfer it to Michael eventually. After she passed last year, I'd considered moving forward with that plan, especially as my own 3-bedroom house felt too big and empty without her. But something held me back, perhaps the way Michael and Deborah had become increasingly distant after her funeral, or how they'd started making excuses whenever I invited them over. Looking back, I can see the pattern had been building for years. It started with small things, canceled plans, forgotten phone calls, being left out of family decisions. When my grandson James had his 5th birthday party, I discovered through Facebook photos that several family friends had been invited, but not me. When I asked Michael about it later, He shrugged it off. Deborah only wanted a small gathering, he said. And you know how you can be a bit much sometimes. I didn't know what much meant, and he didn't elaborate. Was being interested in my grandchildren's lives somehow too much? Last Christmas, they arrived 2 hours late to dinner, stayed for barely 45 minutes, then left to attend Deborah's office party. When Martha was still alive, they never would have dared. She would have called them out immediately. But now that she was gone, it seemed I was an obligation rather than a priority. After Martha's funeral, I'd hoped our family would grow closer, leaning on each other through grief. Instead, the distance grew wider. I invited them to Sunday dinners, offering to cook Martha's famous recipes so the children wouldn't forget their grandmother's cooking. Most weeks, they had excuses. When they did come, Deborah would spend most of the time on her phone, and Michael would find reasons why they needed to leave early. "Dad, we're just so busy these days," became his constant refrain. Too busy for a 1-hour dinner. Too busy to help me sort through Martha's belongings when I finally found the strength to do so. Too busy to call and check on me, even though I lived alone now. 2 months ago, I'd helped them pay for a new dishwasher, $950, after their old one broke. When I arrived with my tools to help Michael install it, I overheard Deborah in the kitchen talking to her sister on the phone. "No, it's fine, he's paying for it," she was saying with a laugh. "You know how Michael's parents are. They think throwing money at us makes up for being so needy. At least we got a free house out of the deal." I quietly stepped back onto the porch and rang the doorbell, pretending I'd just arrived. The installation went ahead as planned, but her words echoed in my mind for weeks afterward. A free house. As if the decades of sacrifice, the delayed retirement, the constant support were nothing but a transaction. 3 weeks ago, I ran into my neighbor Craig at the hardware store. He mentioned he'd seen Michael and Deborah touring a model home in a new development across town. They seemed really excited, he said. Michael mentioned they were close to making an offer. Said they'd been saving for years. Saving for years? While living rent-free in my house. While I continued to cover property taxes they'd promised to pay. While asking me to fund repairs and renovations. And now, on my birthday, my first birthday without Martha, they couldn't spare 2 hours for dinner. After reading Michael's text, I sat alone in my silent house for nearly an hour. Then I called my friend Robert, who's been an attorney for over 30 years. "Can I buy you dinner tonight?" I asked. It's my birthday, and apparently my family is too busy. Over steaks at the restaurant where I should have been celebrating with my son's family, I explained the situation to Robert. He listened carefully, then asked a simple question. "What exactly do you want, James?" "I want my son to remember who I am," I said. "I want him to understand that family obligations go both ways. I want him to realize that kindness isn't the same as weakness." Robert nodded thoughtfully. "The house is still in your name?" "Yes," I confirmed. "We never transferred the deed." "Then legally, they're living there at your pleasure," he said. "They have no right to occupancy without your consent." The next morning, I texted Michael. "Need to discuss an important matter regarding the house. Please have both you and Deborah meet me there at 7 p.m. tonight." His response came hours later. "Can't do tonight. Deborah has yoga and I promised to take the kids to the movies." Something hardened inside me. "This isn't optional, Michael. Cancel your plans. I'll be there at 7. At 7:15, I was still sitting in my car outside their house, my house, with no sign of either of them. Finally, at 7:20, Michael's car pulled into the driveway. He was alone. "Where's Deborah?" I asked as he approached. "She couldn't make it," he said dismissively. "What's this about, Dad?" "We're missing the movie." I took a deep breath. "Let's go inside." Once in their living room, furnished with pieces Martha and I had given them when they moved in, I handed Michael a folder. "What's this?" he asked, not opening it. "It's a lease agreement," I said calmly. "If you and your family wish to continue living in this house, you'll need to sign it." "A lease?" He looked genuinely shocked. "For our house." "My house," I corrected him. "The house that Martha and I bought. The house that's still in my name. The house you've been living in rent-free for 7 years while taking European vacations and buying new cars. Dad, you said we could live here. You offered. I offered to help you get on your feet. I offered a temporary arrangement so you could save for your own place. That was 7 years ago, Michael. In that time, You've contributed nothing to the property taxes or insurance, despite promising you would. I've paid for major repairs out of my retirement savings. And yesterday, you couldn't even spare 2 hours for my birthday dinner. He had the decency to look embarrassed. We were busy. I told you we can do it next weekend. Too busy for family isn't busy, Michael. It's a choice. And I've made a choice too. Starting next month, if you want to stay in this house, you'll pay market rate rent of $2,400 per month. You'll cover all utilities, repairs, and maintenance. Or you can move out within 60 days. This is ridiculous, he exploded. We can't afford that kind of rent. You know that. What are we supposed to do? The same thing other adults do, I said quietly. Make tough choices. Budget. Prioritize needs over wants. All things your mother, and I did so you could have opportunities. We were saving to buy our own place, he protested, while expecting me to continue subsidizing your lifestyle indefinitely, while treating me like an obligation rather than your father. You have two options, Michael. Sign the lease or find somewhere else to live. I stood up to leave. He followed me to the door, still arguing. You can't do this to us. This is our home. I turned to face him one last time. No, son. It's my house. I allowed you to make it your home out of love. But love without respect isn't sustainable. You have 60 days to decide. The next morning, I received a barrage of texts from both Michael and Deborah, ranging from angry accusations to attempts at guilt-tripping. I didn't respond to any of them. Instead, I visited my bank and spoke with a financial advisor about securing my accounts and investments. I updated my will with Robert's help, creating a trust for my grandchildren's education that would be managed by my sister, not their parents. I then contacted a property management company recommended by Robert and arranged for them to handle the lease if Michael and Deborah decided to stay. They would collect rent, deal with maintenance requests, and provide a professional buffer between us. 3 days later, I received a call from Deborah's mother, with whom I'd always had a cordial relationship. James, what's this I hear about you evicting Michael and Deborah? She demanded. I'm not evicting them, I explained calmly. I'm offering them the choice to pay fair market rent or find alternative housing with 60 days' notice. But that's their home. They've been living there for years. Yes, as guests in my house. Guests who have increasingly taken that arrangement for granted. After a lengthy conversation in which I detailed the financial support I'd provided and the growing disrespect I'd experienced, she fell silent. I had no idea, she finally said. Deborah told me you insisted they live there because you wanted the grandchildren close by. I did want them close by, I acknowledged. But that doesn't mean I expected to subsidize their lifestyle while being treated as an afterthought. 1 week after our confrontation, Michael appeared at my door unannounced. He looked like he hadn't slept well. Can we talk? He asked. I invited him in and offered coffee, which he accepted. Dad, we can't afford that kind of rent, he said without preamble. Not with our other expenses. What other expenses would those be, Michael? The European vacation you took last summer? The new SUV in your driveway? Deborah's designer handbags. He had the grace to look ashamed. That's not fair. No, I agreed. It's not fair. It wasn't fair when I paid $28,000 in property taxes you promised to cover. It wasn't fair when I spent $35,000 on home repairs while you took vacations. And it wasn't fair when you couldn't spare 2 hours for dinner on my first birthday without your mother. We sat in silence for a moment. We found an apartment, he finally said. It's smaller than we're used to, but it's what we can afford right now. We'll be out of the house in 30 days. I nodded, feeling a strange mixture of sadness and validation. I hope you find a place that works for your family. There's something else, he continued, looking uncomfortable. Deborah and I, we've been approved for a mortgage. The down payment is coming from her parents. We were going to surprise you with the news that we were moving out on our own. I raised an eyebrow. When exactly were you planning this surprise? He shifted in his seat. We just got approved last week. We were thinking maybe another 6 months in your place while we find the right house and close on it. 6 more months of free housing on top of 7 years. 6 more months of being an afterthought in their lives. I wish you well with your house hunting, I said simply. The 30-day move-out still stands. 2 days before their moving date, I arranged for a locksmith to meet me at the house while they were at work. I had all the locks changed, the garage door opener codes reset, and a new security system installed. I left their keys in an envelope taped to the front door with a note. Please call to arrange a time to remove your remaining belongings. Michael called within an hour, furious. You changed the locks? We still have 2 days. Yes, I confirmed. And you'll need to coordinate with me to access the house during those 2 days. I'll be happy to meet you there tomorrow after work. This is insane. We've lived there for 7 years. And you've had 30 days to move your belongings, I reminded him. I'm simply ensuring an orderly transition. The next evening, I met them at the house. Most of their things were already gone, with just some furniture and boxes remaining. As they loaded the last items into their moving truck, Deborah avoided eye contact with me completely. Michael looked tired and resentful. As they prepared to leave, I handed Michael an envelope. What's this? He asked suspiciously. Open it, I suggested. Inside was a check for $10,000. What's this for? He asked, clearly confused. It's a housewarming gift, I said. For your new place. Despite everything, you're still my son, and I still want you to succeed. He stared at the check for a long moment. I don't understand you, Dad. I know, I said quietly. That's become very clear to me. But maybe someday you will. In the 2 months since they moved out, I've had the house professionally cleaned and listed with a realtor. It's sold within 3 weeks for a price that will significantly enhance my retirement security. Michael and his family moved into their apartment, and according to my sister, who ran into them at the grocery store, they're adjusting to their new financial reality. Deborah has had to cut back on her shopping, and they've canceled their premium cable package and gym memberships. They're learning to live within their means for perhaps the first time in their adult lives. I've received several text messages from Michael, initially angry and accusatory, then gradually more reflective. Last week, he asked if he could come by for coffee. I've been thinking a lot about what happened, he admitted when we sat down together. About how we treated you, especially after Mom died. It wasn't right. No, I agreed. It wasn't. I guess we got used to you and Mom always being there, always helping. We started to expect it. That's a natural human tendency, I said. We often don't value what comes too easily. He nodded slowly. Deborah and I have been talking. We'd like to invite you over for dinner next Sunday. Nothing fancy, just family time. I accepted the invitation, cautiously optimistic about rebuilding our relationship on more equal footing. The dinner was somewhat awkward, but not unpleasant. My grandchildren seemed genuinely happy to see me, and I realized how much I'd missed them. As I was leaving, Michael walked me to my car. Dad, I'm sorry we missed your birthday, he said, looking me in the eye for the first time in months. It was wrong, and I knew it was wrong when I sent that text. Thank you for saying that, I replied. I don't expect you to forget everything that happened, he continued. But I hope we can start over somehow. Not start over, I corrected him. Move forward. With clearer boundaries and expectations on both sides. Last week, I received a handwritten card in the mail from Michael, Deborah, and the kids, inviting me to dinner for my half-birthday, 6 months from my actual birthday. Inside was a note, we won't be too busy this time. Promise. I'm not naive enough to believe that one conversation and a dinner invitation have solved all our problems. Real change takes time and consistent effort from both sides. But it's a start. As for the money from selling the house, I've set aside college funds for my grandchildren and donated a portion to the cancer research center that treated Martha. The rest is funding the retirement travel Martha and I always dreamed about. Next month, I'm taking a 2-week trip to Italy, something we'd always planned to do together. Sometimes, the kindest thing you can do for the people you love is to let them experience the consequences of their actions. It's not about revenge, it's about respect, both for yourself and for them as capable adults who need to make their own choices. And sometimes, changing the locks on a house can open new doors in a relationship that needed serious renovation. If you enjoyed this story, please like and subscribe for more tales of sweet revenge and justice served.